Atlanta police are investigating one of their own officers over claims he used derogatory racial and sexual slurs.
It seems like the flu is everywhere, but is Georgia the sickest state in the nation? Tonight, we investigate those claims.
Olympians from Georgia are here in South Korea. I'm Cheryl Preheim at Olympic Park. We'll take you here to the start of the games.
Live from Atlanta, 11Alive at 6 starts now.
First tonight, an Atlanta police officer under investigation after claims he used racial and sexual slurs. The officer is shown in a video recently posted to social media and then emailed to the 11Alive newsroom. Behind the camera is the president of Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta.
Now, this incident happened across the street from the MARTA 5-Point station. 11Alive's Joe Henke has the play-by-play video and what could come next for the officer in question.
Behind the camera of this video is Sir Major Page, president of Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta.
Hey, sir, are you currently work for APD, sir?
Man, get the away from me.
You work for APD? You said get the away from me. Is that how you talk to citizens? You called me. You work for APD talking like that?
An Atlanta police spokeswoman today by email confirmed the officer in street clothes works for the Atlanta Police Department. She wrote the Office of Professional Standards has opened an investigation into his conduct. As the video continues, Page can also be heard talking to an APD sergeant in uniform.
He called me because I made a complaint that they were illegally parked there.
After hearing Page's complaint, the sergeant can be heard attempting to end the encounter.
I don't like when you call me over nonsense because you have a personal vendetta.
No, it's not a personal vendetta.
And you're wasting our time with this stuff.
Page says he filed a complaint with the department over the use of racial and sexual slurs by the officer. As the APD Office of Professional Standards investigates the claim, several outcomes are possible. According to APD documents, they could rule the evidence supports Page's claim and the officer committed a violation, or they could find the evidence does not support the claim and no violation was committed. The officer could also be exonerated if it is deemed he acted properly, or the complaint could be labeled false and unfounded. If the officer committed a violation, punishment ranges from a written reprimand to suspension or a possible dismissal. I'm Joe Henke, 11Alive News.
This morning, you know, it started with a flurry of severe weather alerts and the downpour focused on counties to the west of Metro Atlanta. And then by noon, the rain had really slowed to a drizzle. But then we had this left behind. It's not massive damage, but if you're there when it's coming down around you, it certainly feels that way in the moment. Chris Hopper has been in Bremen today, and he's live there where one man ran door to door trying to keep everyone safe. Chris?
Yeah, it's not massive damage, Melissa, but certainly, as you said, if you're in the middle of this, it can be pretty scary. And this is the most significant of it right here on this street, this apartment community. If you look down this way, you'll see the base of the tree. It's a pretty large tree, and it fell across this roadway here. And if you go up the tree, you'll see it landed directly on top of this apartment building. There's a car under there as well. It crushed this carport. Some pretty significant damage for the folks who live inside. But the good news is nobody in this apartment building was hurt and everybody got out safely. Now let's look at some video from this morning. You'll see it was a pretty busy area out here as crews worked to clean up, get everybody out safely, make sure everything was okay after that storm swept through. We know that around 8 o'clock or so this morning, people started hearing these tornado warning signs and said they ducked for cover. They got in their bathrooms and their bathtubs to try to make sure they were safe as it was blowing through. They heard the debris hitting their windows, and then they walked outside to see the damage here. And as I said, luckily nobody was hurt. But there was one guy who lives in this apartment community here who rushed into his neighbor's buildings to make sure everybody was okay. Take a listen to him.
Me and my daughter's boyfriend, we come running out and we just went house to house, upstairs, downstairs, and make sure everybody was all right. But there's a lot of damage around here.
It was like, it scares me. I came outside, I had called my dad. I was like, where you at? Like, I was so freaked out.
I sat there and prayed, and we were okay. But it was something, let me tell you.
And we know that Red Cross was here today to help the folks who live inside of this building who won't be able to go back inside for quite some time until this damage is repaired. We also know that this tree is waiting to be removed because they're waiting on the insurance adjuster to come out and take a look at this damage and assess what we're seeing here behind us. They're hoping that happens soon. These people would like to get back into their homes as quickly as possible. Guys?
Chris, thank you very much. They're lucky considering how large that tree is. We continue our team coverage tonight. We have a look at the radar and the severe weather. It is over.
Yeah, the line came through. It is now out of here. In fact, you can see this is a 12-hour loop. We'll put this back to the beginning, and you can see what we were watching this morning with this line of storms coming out of Alabama, moving through parts of Haralson County, Polk County, Carroll County. That's where we had the first tornado warning. We also had tornado warnings down in Heard County, Meriwether, and also into Coweta County. But that line moved on down to the south. But then we've been dealing with just a few lingering showers still kind of left behind. In fact, here's a look at our radar closer in, and you can see what we're watching. Now, here's a look at some of the damage that has been reported from the storm reports from the National Weather Service. You've got this up in Haralson County, more down in Heard County, also some damage over in the Newton County and Rockdale County area of thunderstorm wind damage. The National Weather Service is going to go out and survey that damage tomorrow to determine, even though we did have tornado warnings and we were seeing rotation on radar, they're going to go out to determine whether or not these were actual tornadoes in Haralson County, also down into Heard County. They'll also be checking out Talbot County as well. So we'll have that report for you tomorrow when that comes out. But the good news is the severe weather threat for us is over. We're seeing the rain move out. Now the cooler air moves our way. We'll talk about how that will impact the end of the week and talk about more rain chances coming in for the weekend. More on that in just a bit.
Thank you, Chris. All new tonight at 6, Fulton County could be the next in making big changes to how it polices marijuana. Today, members of the County Board of Commissioners announced a proposal to decriminalize possession of small amounts of the drug, essentially equating the punishment to that of a traffic ticket. The new rules don't legalize marijuana, but it would mean that people caught with less than an ounce would not be thrown in jail. Instead, they would face no more than a $75 fine. That is in line with an ordinance passed last year by the Atlanta City Council. Officials say the current law disproportionately impacts black men and it overcrowds jails. Commissioners are calling in for other local cities and municipalities to consider similar laws.
Hundreds of new flu patients each day continue to jam Grady Hospital's emergency department downtown, but there's a new portable emergency room set up right in the parking lot of Grady, set up last week, to handle the big crowds, and it has cut the wait times in half. But there is no let up in the volume of flu patients overall.
We're still seeing some very sick patients come into the hospital who are requiring ICU level care.
Grady says if the flu doesn't let up, doctors may actually keep that portable ER set up in the parking lot into next month. The chances are you know someone staying home from work or from school, and there's actually an app that claims our state is the sickest state for the flu. So we asked Caitlin Ross to verify that claim.
The app is called Kinza, and it has users upload their temperature when they get sick and then suggests the next steps and if they should go see a doctor. I talked to the founder of the app who said they track the flu in real time as people get sick. The app can gather that information and then figure out where the flu is the worst. But the app depends on people voluntarily uploading their data, and only 1 million people have downloaded the app. Their methodology isn't exactly scientific, so let's look at the science. The CDC does categorize Georgia as a state with high flu activity, but that's the same category that they gave to more than 25 other states. Flu deaths are higher in Texas than in Georgia. Both states had around 1,000 people hospitalized for the last weekly flu report. So we can verify that Georgia is one of the hardest hit states with the flu, but certain data checkpoints don't say that we're exactly the worst, so that claim is false. But Kinza says the data provided by the CDC is about a month behind because it takes time for each hospital and doctor's office to report into the CDC. So we'll check back in a month and see if their claim is true.
Caitlin, thank you. We are in a crisis. That is the message from state lawmakers today. That's because in 2016, there were more than 1,400 overdose deaths in the state of Georgia. More than 900 of them were from opioids. To put that in perspective, that's the same number of people who died from the flu during that same time, nearly the same number of people who died in car crashes. So today at the Capitol, there was movement on a bill that many are calling a milestone achievement. Here's Doug Richards with more.
The hugs in the hallway outside the Senate gallery signaled what backers hope is a milestone in the long, frustrating effort to curb the opioid epidemic.
Well, it allows them to get into a place without having to pay unnecessary money.
Missy Owen lost her 20-year-old son Davis to heroin addiction.
My son Davis was an amazing young man.
Her story was central to an 11Alive news report called The Triangle, which led the way exposing opioid and heroin addiction in Atlanta's northern suburbs.
In the past 2 years, I've had 8 friends die from overdoses.
The story showed how prescribed opioids made addicts of their users and often led them to heroin use. The problem has only increased since.
We are getting to the point where deaths from substance abuse and overdoses is greater than traffic accidents.
Senator Renee Unterman sponsored the bill that clamps down on what she called vultures who are exploiting addicts. The bill makes illegal patient brokering, including referral fees among treatment services. It increases penalties for insurance fraud, and it appoints a statewide commission to oversee treatment programs run by what backers call a Georgia drug czar who would answer to the governor.
Yes, what they do is they do unnecessary testing, urine testing, and it's very costly, and these families are having to pay for that.
Owen expects other exploitative practices will end as well if the bill becomes law, and she hopes it will get more patients who need it into treatment. At the Capitol, Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.